And the United States must acknowledge its role in the injustice and human rights violations of Palestinians. This is not about both sides. This is about an imbalance of power. If we're scared to stand up to the incarceration of children in Palestine, it's because maybe it'll force us to confront the incarceration of children here on our border. If by standing up to the injustices there, it will prompt us to stand up to the injustices here.
Lisa Daftari is here. She's from the Foreign Desk, which is foreigndesknews.com, Middle East counterterrorism expert, and editor-in-chief of the Foreign Desk. Lisa, how are you?
Doing well. How are you, Mike?
Good to talk to you. What are the human rights abuses that the Israelis/Americans are committing against the Palestinians?
This clip is so painful to listen to because it has so many just contextual errors. I mean, AOC couldn't place Israel on a map, let alone have the floor, have this platform to be spewing this garbage and then connecting it to our border. No country is perfect, but obviously countries like the United States, like Israel, who pride themselves on being a democracy. I mean, there has to be some sort of, point of reference where she can make a differentiation between countries in Africa that are actually committing slavery, that are actually raping their children, that are actually incarcerating their children, and countries like Israel and the United States. So that's first and foremost. Secondly, she should not have a platform to be representing this country when she speaks, in such a dangerous and divisive way, and really gets all the facts wrong. Let's talk about the history of Israel and the way that they treat their children, their minorities, their gays. Look, we just started on Pride Week, we talk about rights, and the leftists get so riled up about Palestinian rights. Well, how about the rights of the marginalized in the Palestinian territories? How are gays treated? How are women treated? Can they dress the way that they want? Can they go out without a male escort entourage? Can they go out, and be free? Can they post whatever they want on their Facebook pages? Can they speak out against Hamas? These are the questions. These are the freedoms that they're not afforded by their own government. Whereas if you compare that to the Arabs, the Palestinians who are living inside Israel, who have those rights to work, to live freely, to be gay, to be feminist, to be liberal, whatever they want. I mean, these are the truths and these are the nuances that are missing in today's coverage and the narrative that has been portrayed this time around, and always, I should say, but this time around during this escalation between Israel and Hamas.
So bizarre that the woke left supports these people and a culture and government that is contrary to every value they say they hold dear. That is one of the most bizarre things that there is. New York Times ran a story the other day of all the kids that were killed by Israel recently. When you see a piece of propaganda like that, clearly from the Palestinian perspective merely, and without giving the proper context, what should we know? What should we know when we see an article about Palestinian kids killed?
Yeah, great question. When you see that, obviously it's a tearjerker and everyone feels for the children. And look, you should know this, that Hamas, the Palestinian leadership, has nothing to lose. Every time they enter into a conflict with Israel, it is not a military conflict. It is purely a PR, a public relations, a marketing, a propaganda conflict, meaning they are setting out only to set the stage for more abuse, violence, animosity, not just towards Israel, towards Zionists, towards Jews on the streets of New York and on the streets of Los Angeles and on the streets of London and Toronto and Montreal. That's what they're after. And that's exactly what they got. And the left fed right into this plan. The masterful thing that not just the Palestinian leadership, but those who carry this cause here in the United States have been able to do, and also throughout Europe, is to piggyback on all of these other social justice causes, this intersectionality that we talk about. So they send the message, if you care about gays, you should care about Palestinians. If you care about women's rights, you should care about Palestinians. Look at Linda Sarsour and how she inserted herself with the Women's March only to push this anti-Israel, I don't even call it pro-Palestinian, I just call it anti-Israel propaganda, because that is their number one goal, is to villainize not just Israel, but Jews. That's how this has come from anti-Zionism to anti-Semitism. That's how it has traveled to the United States. I mean, what does Israel and its policies have to do with people, thugs, going up to diners in a restaurant in Los Angeles or New York and saying, "Are you Jewish?" They're not asking, "Do you agree with Bibi Netanyahu?" They're not asking, "Do you agree with settlements?" They're not asking, "Who do you believe the land belongs to?" They're asking, "Are you Jewish?" Now, that tells us a lot about that front page in the New York Times. That tells us a lot about the message that they're trying to send and this villainization that continues.
Wow, that was deep and insightful. I want more of that. Like, subscribe, get more.